Hello and welcome back to Diddy on Trial from the BBC World Service YouTube channel with me, Anoushka Mutanda-Dougherty. It's here, we're finally in New York. The trial is set to start inside this courtroom on Monday, and in the past week, the group of people responsible for deciding whether Diddy is guilty or not, that's the jury of everyday Americans, has been selected. Pretty much all of them said they've watched stuff on social media about Diddy. Now, a reminder, since September 2024, Diddy's been hauled up here at the notorious Metropolitan Detention Center in New York. He's been charged with sex trafficking, transportation for prostitution, and racketeering with conspiracy, and he has consistently denied all the allegations. Soon, it's going to be the jury's turn to hear all the evidence, witness weeks of careful cross-examination, and finally deliberate and decide. But the first thing they're going to hear inside that courtroom is opening statements. So if first impressions are everything, they better get this right. That's why before I got here, I caught up with our resident criminal defense attorney, Shaun Kent. Hi, Shaun.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good. I mean, I spoke to you last night. I didn't realize this was your complete area of expertise, and you teach other lawyers how to write opening and closing statements. First of all, before we get into the recipe for a great one, what makes a terrible opening statement?
Length. If you go entirely too long, and we always tell lawyers, if you go way too long and you bore the jury, because don't forget, the jury are just people. If you've ever been watching a movie or anything about legal shows, they can get to their point very succinctly and very quickly, and the jury's expecting the same thing. An opening statement is just your opportunity from the prosecution standpoint to say, this is what we intend on proving. The defense standpoint is really, it's sort of like a handshake. If you ever walked into a club or walked into a bar, the first time you've met somebody, it's, can I make you like me in a very short, quick period of time? And so that's really the point. Prosecution is trying to say, this is why we're going to win. Defense is trying to say, this is why you should like me, and listen.
So do the defense need to make it a bit more emotional?
100%. Like, one of the things that people don't understand is, if you've ever been in an argument with a loved one, the person who gets the first word and the person who gets the last word in an argument, some people always assume they win. The government gets the first word in the trial, and in the federal trial, they get the last word. So you can imagine, if they're going first and they're going last, if you are boring and uninspiring in the middle, the jury checks out. They are just not listening anymore because the government's getting the last word. So I always say the defense has got to be much more entertaining, much more flamboyant, and make that jury listen.
How much are you allowed to, I'm searching for a better way of saying trash talk, but trash talk the other side?
You can do it significantly more in closing arguments, because a closing argument is just that. It is, I'm going to tell you everything, and I'm going to tell you why that guy is wrong. And it's saying, look, guys, everything they said is a load of bull, and let me tell you why. Let me tell you all the awful stuff that the United States of America is about to do during this trial. That's the point of opening. You're trying to get that jury on your side, believe it or not, just to listen.
So other than rambling on being a key mistake, what are some of the most common mistakes that people make with opening statements?
You'll be shocked. The biggest one I find are people relying on notes, okay? And you say, oh, why would they not have notes? The example I give when we teach is, I'll go in a group of people and I say, how many of you are married? Hands raised. And I said, how many of you, when you proposed or got proposed to, your significant other used notes? And everybody's hands down. I'm like, well, why didn't they use notes? And everybody will say the same thing. Well, because it was an important day to me. And I said, exactly. If this is the most important day of your life, you don't need notes because you believe in this scenario. The same respect, if a defense attorney is reading from notes, he's telling the jury, I don't believe in this case. I'm just reading my notes. And you can't make sustained eye contact. If it's not too long and it's about 30 minutes and this is your passion, this is how you feel about your client, then you don't need notes. You're telling a story to somebody. So that's the biggest one, is I see way too much reliance on notes. And you don't need notes if you believe in this person.
So then, in this case, a lot of Diddy's freedom, I guess, might be riding on his lawyer's abilities to emote.
Absolutely.
Act in some cases.
Absolutely. It is 100%. If they like them, if they believe in them, if they are listening to them, then they're going to give the client a benefit of a doubt. You understand? If the jury hates the lawyer and thinks the lawyer is a jackass, and they're not going to listen, and they start doing their hands like this because you're saying stuff that they cannot believe in, then all of a sudden, they don't like your client.
So you mentioned, obviously, there are visible tells, body language. for the jury, who's engaging, who's not. I mean, some people might get upset. I don't know. Do you have somebody watching the jury and going, well, number 3 did this and number 4 did that?
You are so right on that. And that's why a lot of times, most trials, anytime we try a case, you have what's called a first chair and a second chair. You probably have seen that in the filings. He is the first chair of the case. All the first chair does is they sit in the first spot. The second chair lawyer or the paralegals behind them are watching the jury. And at the end of the day, they're saying, look, you remember the firefighter on the first row? He didn't like when you insulted Donald Trump. He's clearly a conservative and you went too far. Or the woman in the third row. Those are the things that we are doing. And good lawyers have people watching all of these things.
So I'm a bit nervous for this, actually, because with all that being said, I've tried to come up with 4 points for the prosecution and defense that would potentially be added to their opening statements. This is based on stuff that they've said in filings, based on stuff that they've said in statements, based on public comments that they've made, right? So I'm not coming up with any of this myself. Sean, go easy on me. I'll do the...
I will not.
I'll go straight into the prosecution, so they can speak a little bit more about evidence in their opening statement.
Not only can they 100% will. But generally it's like, this is what happened. This is what, and they can't say this is a fact. Remember, they can say this is what we believe the evidence will show and what we will prove. But go ahead, let's hear, Madam Prosecutor.
Right, okay. Number 1, this man had absolute power, more power than the average US citizen will ever have. He had teams of people dedicated to getting him anything he wanted, and he abused this. He thought no one would stand up to him. So that would be number 1, I guess, relating to the RICO charge. Number 2, he went on social media and protested his innocence and said that he'd never done any of the things that he was accused of. And then we all later saw evidence that he had in the video of him assaulting Cassie, which you are going to see or has been admitted into this trial. Number 3, talking about the bravery of the victims, how difficult it is to testify, what they've got on the line, how this is going to affect them for the rest of their lives. Number 4, I think they're going to tell you, as in the defense are going to tell you, that he's a father, he's a successful black man, that he's done a lot for his community, but that doesn't preclude him from also being all of these other things. How is that okay?
3 of 4. Okay. I like the first 3. The 4th one, even though it's good, I would say that for closing argument, because this is what they've showed you. And just because he's a good person doesn't mean good people don't commit crimes. And we have showed you evidence that he will. 2, prosecutors will say, we believe the evidence will show, okay? Because remember, at opening statement, no evidence has come in yet. So they cannot say this happened, even though we all know it. They will say, you know, through the course of this trial, what we are going to do is we're going to present you evidence of the following. And let me tell you who Mr. Combs is. And this is what we believe the evidence will show. We will show you a video. We will do this. And they'll be very methodical in that opening statement. And then they'll go through the law because they want to make sure the jury understands. Mr. Combs is accused of RICO. And they probably won't call him Mr. Combs. They'll probably call him the defendant. And that's a lot of times what the prosecution does. They'll say the defendant is accused of the following. And they will be very methodical and go through it.
I can see why they pay you the big bucks, Sean.
That's the rumor.
I'll do the defense. Number 1, there's been a media circus, a complete media circus around this man. It's been trialed by the public. I want you to forget everything that you've read and focus on what is actually very limited evidence. As the first point. Number 2, he admits that he had toxic relationships, but these relationships were built on consent, not coercion. Number 3, at the end of the day, he's a dedicated father, a successful businessman, a black entrepreneur, a pillar in the community, and seeing his reputation get torn apart has been really painful for him and his family. Number 4, you wouldn't usually hear from the defendant, but Diddy has nothing to hide, so he will be taking the stand. Good? Bad? How do you feel about that?
I love 1 and 3.
Okay.
I hate 2 and 4.
Okay.
1 and 3 are flawless. And that's what a good defense attorney will do, because they'll come out there and they'll specifically, we call it the 8 Mile defense. Have you ever watched 8 Mile with Eminem? At the penultimate scene, he comes out and he's like, tell these people something you don't know about me. And so that's where they might own it. It's like, let me tell you about this guy. Let me tell you about Shaun Combs. Not Diddy, but Shaun. Shaun loves his children. He loves his community. And now he's find himself face against the awesome power of the United States of America. Let me say this again. The United States of America, with all their power, all their money, all their influence, are going after Shaun. Imagine, if you will, you find yourself with the might of the United States of America coming against you. It's hard to fight, and that's what we're going to do together. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's a perfect human being, because he's not. And we all have our mistakes that we've made in our life. Now, the United States of America is going to do everything. And what you're doing by saying United States is you want to make sure everyone knows it's the U.S. versus him. It's the U.S. versus him. It's the U.S. versus him. And so you go that far. Now, we do not, usually as defense attorneys, we try our darndest not to get into the evidence. Remember, our whole point in our opening statement, what you did in number 2 was do what the prosecution does. The evidence will show this. We're not talking about this. We're talking about, let me tell you about Shaun. Let me tell you about how good of a guy he is. Let me tell you how good of a person he is. And let me tell you about the mistakes he's made. And we're not going to hide from those mistakes. So that's why we don't do number 2. Number 4, even though you're thinking he's testifying, even though I'm thinking he's testifying, there's always a chance he's not. And for 2 reasons, you don't 100% say he's going to testify. 1, somebody from the prosecution could mess up, and then there's no reason to put him on the stand. And then if you make a promise to a jury, an opening statement, and don't do it, they're going to hold it against you. They're like, oh, wait, she said he was going to testify. Why didn't he? You'd be shocked how many times we've had clients who are convinced they're going to testify, and then they watch a bunch of witnesses get embarrassed. They watch a bunch of witnesses get cross-examined. Some information comes in, and they back off. He's like, I'm not taking that stand. And so you don't want to make a promise, an opening statement that you can't deliver. And I think earlier you said it, and you might say, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. You might not say, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. You might say, hello. I usually just walk up to them. I take a deep breath and I say, hey, guys, let's talk. Because you want a conversation. Guys, let's talk. I want to tell you about Shaun. I don't call him the defendant. I don't call him client. And I get mad when lawyers we teach try to do the same. He is not a defendant. He is not a client. He has a name. His name is Shaun. You might want to explain why he's called Puffy, In certain situations, you don't get into the background, but with this client, you would talk about, I love the first thing you said is you went into the social media stuff. I would 100% do the same thing. One of the things that I would do in a case like this is I'm a storyteller, and I believe that defense attorneys should all be storytellers because you want the jury's attention. Well, ladies and gentlemen, all you've been hearing for months is the evilness of Sean Puff Daddy Combs. But now it's time for us to tell you the rest of the story. And all I'm asking you is during the course of this trial, listen for the rest of the story without the influence, without social media, without TikTok, without Instagram, but with facts and evidence and actual witnesses.
Shaun, thank you so much for this. I mean, we're going to be in touch with you throughout the trial and getting your analysis, and definitely want to hear what you make of those opening statements that are going to be made on the 12th of May in that courtroom. We'll see if they live up to the Shaun Kent standard.
I'll be watching. I'm gonna have a little notepad critiquing.
That was our resident criminal defense attorney, Shaun Kent. Now, we've told you before a couple of times that there are no cameras inside this federal courtroom, and you can't even take electronic devices in. So what do you rely on to see what's going on inside there? Courtroom sketches. And I spoke to Jane Rosenberg, the woman responsible for drawing Diddy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Jane, how long have you been doing this?
Since 1980, so what is that, 45 years? Yeah.
And what are some of the big names that you've covered that we might know?
John Gotti, Glenn Maxwell, Trump trials, Harvey Weinstein, everything that you can think of, I probably was there.
How did you end up getting into this?
I was always an artist. I loved drawing people. I was a struggling artist after college. I did portraits. I did whatever I could to earn $1. I drew on the sidewalks with a hat out, did copies of Vermeer and Rembrandt. And then I saw another courtroom artist do a lecture at the Society of Illustrators, and I thought, oh, I would love to do that. So I started to go to court and practice. I asked the court officers, where do the artists sit? What do they bring? I asked so many questions. I finally said, okay, come next week. We'll let you sit with the other artists. I did my sketch, and there were only 2 other artists there. I thought, I really should try to sell this. I called NBC. They said, come on in. Let's see what you've got. And that's how it started.
But you've just listed off a bunch of names there that are household names, obviously Donald Trump being at the top of that list, Ghislaine Maxwell, now P. Diddy. We rely on you to show us what those big household names are looking like as they're going through these huge court procedures. What makes a good court sketch?
I don't know. If I've captured the energy that's happening, if I have more time, I usually do better work. The initial sketches I do of somebody, I might not have enough time because an arraignment is really quick. It could be just 5 minutes or less for an arraignment. But then as a trial, there are pre-trial hearings that go on longer. And it depends where I'm sitting and what my view is and how much time I have. That's what I have to deal with.
What makes a bad one? Do you ever look at other people's and goes, God, that's not it?
At other people's, how about my own? I do that myself a lot. I go, oh God, and I try to fix it up for myself because I've already sent it out. You all see my bad ones. Too bad on me. So it's out there, and I can't change what you see, but I can try to like struggle myself and correct it on a phone. And go, oh, if only I had made his nose shorter or whatever. And it's hard to get that to work out right from the start.
How do you choose which part of the proceedings you're going to draw the sketch from?
Okay, I know I'm going to have to get the defendant. I know I have to get that likeness. And then if I have more time, I'll put in some lawyers. Like I just did Luigi Mangione arraignment a couple of days ago. I did Diddy and Mangione on the same day. Boy, that was a rough day. But I knew I had to get him, but I got him, and then I threw in some lawyers next to him, which barely looked like the lawyers because the time ran out. That was it. So the same is true for Diddy. I have to get him, and I sort of try to compose in my mind how much space I've got on my paper and what I might do, but things happen. If something happens, if somebody jumps up and speaks, if anything happens, I try to get it, depending on my time. I sometimes do an outline and then I never finish it because I don't have time.
Do you have to prep? So, for instance, for Diddy, were you drawing old pictures of Diddy to just get him right before you went in? What prep do you do?
Well, I did do a Diddy trial about 2001 or there was something with a gun charge.
Yeah, the Shine shooting in the nightclub. Yeah. But Diddy actually was found not guilty in that one.
Yes, I did that whole trial. So he looked very different then. It doesn't matter. There are no pictures of how he looks now with the gray. He has gray hair and a beard, white, very white beard, little goatee. He looks different. So the thing with a famous person, people always remember what they used to look like. And he had signature close crop, neatly angled hairdo. And he always had that black hair and his beard shape changed, but now he does not look that way, and it's hard to get that likeness and have people know that's still him. So that's where I'm struggling with that.
What's it been like for you covering the first trial in 2001, the shooting in the nightclub, to this?
I had a little kid back then. Life was I took my child and his friend to see that original Diddy trial. They were young kids. They got an autograph from him. I remember they were so excited being in the courtroom with a star. And then he told them, stay in school. I think they had a day off, and I took my kid and his friend. His first trial was massive, too. It was a state court, but it had a lot of coverage. He had very famous lawyers. Johnny Cochran, who represented the football guy, OJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was his lawyer, and Ben Brofman.
Who's been the hardest person to capture of the notable figures that you've sketched?
I don't know. I don't have one specific hardest person. I'll say Diddy right now. He's hard.
What makes him so hard?
Well, he's very, I don't know, smooth. I'm hoping I'll get him better, but some people are just, I love crazy hair, like Sam Bankman-Fried had a lot of crazy hair. There are people when they cut their hair, like Sam Bankman-Fried just one day came to court and his hair was all closely cropped. He had lost his curls, and I was like, oh my God, is that him? It doesn't really look like him anymore. And Charles Manson, I didn't do that trial, but he shaved his head. He had this wild hair and suddenly came to court with a shaved head. Nobody knew that was him anymore. So I'll have to see how it goes.
Have you had anybody reach out to you afterwards and say, you didn't draw me favorably enough?
No. Oh, in the past?
Yeah.
Harvey Weinstein asked for more hair. John Gotti asked me to trim his chin. But generally, I don't speak to defendants. If it happened to be near me, and they might say something. But I don't do social media, so a lot of criticism happens.
Harvey Weinstein leaned over during the proceedings and said, give me more hair?
Yeah. So I was seated in the back of the room, and he was out then. This was before the trial happened. He was not in custody. So he walked out during a break with his lawyers, and I was sitting in the aisle in the back row, and he looked over at my sketch. He said, can't you give me more hair? So, I mean, he could see my drawing because he walked right by me. Trump used to walk by and see my drawings too, but he didn't complain about them. Although his son asked me to make him look sexy, Don Trump Jr.
He asked you to make Donald Trump look sexy or him?
Junior. He said, make me look sexy. And he showed me an AI image of Sam Bankman-Fried. And he said, look at this. And he said, it made him look like a superstar. Can't you do that with me? And I said, that's fake, the AI image. You know, somebody made Sam Bankman-Fried look real handsome. He wanted to look real handsome too.
My goodness, you must be the best dinner party guest ever. These stories are this is insane. I mean, you've got a window into a world that no one really gets to see. What's the biggest thing that you've learned from doing this over 4 decades?
Biggest thing that I've learned, that it's just a piece of history, and then it goes, news cycles are fickle, you never know. Suddenly they're really into something, and then nobody cares.
And do you feel like this is a big responsibility when you're doing it, or do you just crack on with the sketches?
Oh, I feel tremendous responsibility to do my best, to be there on time, to try to get a good seat. I'm a very responsible and reliable person, but that's, I'm not really thinking about the world depending on me at that moment. That would just be too much. I'm thinking about me trying to do my best. That's what I do with my job. It's for me to do my very best that I can do to make a good sketch.
And when we started speaking, you spoke about capturing the vibe of the person. Does that mean you get a little bit of artistic license?
My goal is to capture somebody else's emotion, not my own feeling about the person. So people think, well, aren't you editorializing? It's not that. I'm watching somebody else. And if they're leaning back or looking pompous, a certain body language, arms crossed, or if they're crying, or any emotion that whoever I'm drawing is depicting is what I'm trying to capture in my sketch. I'm not going for what I feel. It's not my opinion. It's the same thing for a writer or for any kind of journalism.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, journalist, you have to go for what is happening out there, not for what your opinion is.
I should have asked, actually. Is there anything from all of these trials you've covered that's like really stayed with you or shocked you? Any standout moments?
One time a terrorist was sitting with a bunch of terrorist defendants. They let me sit, this was a long time ago, and they let me sit inside the well. And one of them jumped over the railing I don't really know if he's going to try to attack the judge or trying to escape the courtroom. But that was a scary moment. The judge stood up and pushed a panic button, and I got off my chair and squatted on the floor because marshals came running in and tackled the guy right next to me, smashed his head against the wall. That was a bit of a moment of a shocker for me.
That was Jane Rosenberg, court sketch artist and author of Drawn Testimony. And that's it for this episode of Diddy on Trial from the BBC World Service YouTube channel with me, Anoushka Mutanda-Dougherty. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you do not miss the next episode, which is Opening Statements. We'll be outside that courtroom on May 12th. See you there.